Unit 13. Real Estate Appraising. Learning Objectives. When you have completed this unit, you will be able to state the requirements to become licensed as an appraiser in California. Define what an appraisal is and explain how an appraisal may be used. List the basic economic principles that affect market value. Recognize how a comparative market analysis can assist a seller or buyer in estimating market value. Describe the three basic methods of appraising real estate. Explain how the appraiser reconciles the values reached by each of the appraisal approaches, and list the ways in which the appraiser's final opinion of market value is reported. Key terms: anticipation, appraisal, arm's length, transaction, balance, broker's price opinion, BPO, Bureau of Real Estate Appraisers, BRE, capitalization, cap, rate, change, comparative market analysis, CMA, competition, comps, conformity, contract rent, contribution, cost approach, decline, depreciation, effective gross income, equilibrium, external obsolescence, federally related transaction, functional obsolescence, gentrification, gross income multiplier, GIM, growth, highest and best use, income capitalization approach, index method, market rent, market value, net operating income, observed condition method, physical deterioration, potential gross income, progression, quantity survey method, reconciliation, regression, replacement cost, reproduction cost, restricted use report, revitalization, sales comparison approach, scarcity, self-contained report, square foot method, straight line method, substitution, summary report, supply and demand, transferability, uniform residential appraisal report, URA, unit in place method, utility, value in exchange, value in use. 427. Summary: an accurate appraisal is a necessary and very important part of the real estate transaction. An appraisal by a licensed or certified appraiser is also useful for many other purposes, from acquiring insurance to determining a property's highest and best use. An appraiser's opinion of value can be determined as of the date on which the appraiser inspects the subject property or any time in the past. The value most often sought is market value, which is a result of demand, utility, scarcity, transferability, and the availability of suitable financing. The appraiser follows certain valuation principles that provide a way to define and examine forces at work in the marketplace, such as competition, growth, anticipation, and supply and demand. Using the sales comparison approach, the appraiser analyzes data regarding the subject property and comparable properties, comps, to determine market value. Using the cost approach, the appraiser determines what it would cost to construct a new building having the same utility as the subject property. The value of the site without improvements is added to the reproduction cost or replacement cost of the improvements, less the amount by which they have depreciated. Computing reproduction cost requires knowledge of current construction methods and costs, particularly if the unit in place method or quantity survey method is used. Depreciation can be physical, functional, or external. Items of curable depreciation can be corrected economically. Items of incurable depreciation cannot be corrected economically. Using the income capitalization approach, the appraiser develops the appropriate capitalization rate for the subject property. The appraiser then applies that rate to the property's net operating income to find property value. For some properties, a better approach is to use a gross income multiplier. All three approaches to value may be used in an appraisal. The appraiser will choose the value most appropriate for the property being appraised. In this process, called reconciliation, the appraiser uses the other values to support the final opinion of value or explain variances. The sales comparison approach usually is the best indicator of value for residential property. The cost approach is the most reliable indicator for newly constructed or special purpose property. The income capitalization approach is the best indicator of value for commercial, industrial property and apartment buildings of 5 units or more. California_E_principles_10E_book.INP 427 the 23rd of May 2017 2:32 and 5 seconds p.m. 428 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition open for discussion. Organizations such as the Appraisal Institute are creating national databases of property information, including sales and appraisal data. 1. Do you think such databases will eventually replace the work of professional appraisers? 2. What are some of the reasons why the appraiser may still be a necessary part of the transaction? California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 428 the 23rd of May 2017 2:32 and 5 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 429. Review questions. 1. A house is appraised at $423,000, even though it cost $435,000 to build 3 years earlier. Which factor could not have contributed to the loss in value? A. Regression. B. Gentrification. C. Functional obsolescence. D. Supply and demand. 2. Trevor owns a vacant lot and employs an appraiser to determine the property's A. Growth. B. Reproduction cost. C. Replacement cost. D. Highest and best use. 3. Since the Riverside factory closed, houses in Sunny Acres are taking longer to sell, and prices have gone down. This is a result of A. Highest and best use. B. Supply and demand. C. Contribution. D. Conformity. 4. A house that benefits from the desirability of its neighboring properties is an example of the principle of A. Balance. B. Contribution. C. Progression. D. Regression. 5. A homeowner's deluxe 5-bedroom house is in a neighborhood of modest 3-bedroom houses. The value of the 5-bedroom house will be affected because of the principle of A. Substitution. B. Scarcity. C. Progression. D. Regression. 6. An improvement to a house may or may not create a corresponding increase in the house's market value. This is an example of A. Balance. B. Progression. C. Contribution. D. Regression. 7. The managers are looking forward to eventually retiring on the profit they will make from selling their house. Their attitude is an example of A. Progression. B. Growth. C. Acquisition. D. Anticipation. 8. House is sold for $867,000 and is comparable to the house being appraised, but it has an extra garage valued at $47,000. What is the adjusted value of house A? A. $767,000. B. $813,000. C. $820,000. D. $914,000. 9. To calculate the market value of a 19th century San Francisco Victorian-style mansion, using the cost approach, you probably would use A. Reproduction cost. B. Replacement cost. C. Historical building cost. D. Cost averaging. 10. The cubic foot method of estimating construction cost is best used for A. Single-family residences. B. Manufactured homes. C. Industrial properties. D. Multifamily residential properties. 11. Appraiser Hansen estimated all direct and indirect construction costs of the Harley building separately, then totaled them. She used A. The unit-in-place method. B. The index method. C. The quantity survey method. D. The cost averaging method. 12. A single-family residence with a one-car garage may be an example of A. External obsolescence. B. Functional obsolescence. C. Economic obsolescence. D. Environmental obsolescence. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 429 the 23rd of May 2017 2:32 and 5 seconds p.m. 4:30 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. 13. Houses adjacent to a new highway will probably suffer from A. Curable external obsolescence. B. Incurable functional obsolescence. C. Curable functional obsolescence. D. Incurable external obsolescence. 14. Which is not a form of depreciation? A. Physical deterioration. B. Straight line method. C. Economic obsolescence. D. Functional obsolescence. 15. The upper limit of a property's value usually is determined by A. The market comparison approach. B. The cost approach. C. The income approach. D. The sales comparison approach. 16. Vacancy and collection losses are subtracted from potential gross income to derive A. Net operating income. B. Gross operating income. C. Effective gross income. D. Capitalization rate. 17. An office building with an annual gross income of $70,175 sold for $800,000. What is the building's gross income multiplier? A. 11.4. B. 1.147. C. 0.0877. D. 12. 18. The gross rent multiplier for most single-family residences in the Northside neighborhood is 268. What is the market value of a house using that GRM, if the house rents for $1,975 per month? A. $736,940. B. $525,350. C. $529,300. D. $568,800. 19. The step in which the appraiser arrives at a final opinion of value is called A. Equilibrium. B. Reconciliation. C. Substitution. D. Equalization. 20. The most comprehensive method of conveying the result of an appraisal is A. The self-contained report. B. The form report. C. The restricted use report. D. The summary report. Appraiser licensing. Perhaps the most important step in selling real estate is pricing it right. This means that the asking price must reflect what buyers in the marketplace are willing to pay for property of that type. And that is where a property appraisal or an estimate of a property's market value comes in. This unit will discuss the qualifications of an appraiser and the requirements for an appraisal. But there is a less formal valuation process that is frequently performed by real estate licensees called a broker's price opinion, BPO, which is discussed later in the unit. The Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989, FIREA, requires that as of January 1, 1993, all property appraisals that are part of federally related transactions be performed only by appraisers licensed by the state in which the property is located. Individual federal agencies are allowed to set a minimum property value, and appraiser licensing is not required below that value. State qualifications for a licensed appraiser and a licensing examination should meet or exceed those produced by the Appraiser Qualifications Board of their appraisal foundation. In addition, each state should set standards for an acceptable appraisal report that meet or exceed those developed by the Appraisal Standards Board of the Appraisal Foundation. The Appraisal Foundation is a California_E_Principles_10E_book.INP 402 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 403 Non-Profit Association of Trade Groups, including appraisers, lenders, educators, and others, located in Washington, D.C. Appraisals came under renewed scrutiny with the drop in home values initiated with the subprime mortgage crisis. As a result, Freddie Mac, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, and the New York State Attorney agreed in March 2008 to develop the Home Valuation Code of Conduct, Code. Following opportunity for public comments, the code was adopted by Freddie Mac. Effective May 1, 2009, Freddie Mac no longer purchased mortgages from sellers, lenders, that did not adopt the code with respect to single-family mortgages delivered to Freddie Mac. For single-family mortgages with loan application dates on or after May 1, 2009, Freddie Mac sellers, services were required to represent and warrant that the appraisal reports were obtained in a manner consistent with the code. Freddie Mac exempted from the requirements FHA/VA, Section 184 Native American, and Section 502 guaranteed rural housing mortgages. Among other provisions, the code prohibited lenders and third parties from influencing or attempting to influence the development, result, or review of an appraisal report. The code also required lenders to ensure that borrowers were provided a copy of the appraisal report no less than 3 business days before closing, unless the borrower waived the requirement. More information about the code can be found at www.freddieemac.com. The Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010, Dodd-Frank Act, superseded the code, effective April 1, 2011. The Dodd-Frank Act stresses that lending institutions should provide for the independence of the persons ordering, performing, and reviewing appraisals or evaluations. The Act does not apply to appraisals of property. When the transaction value is $250,000 or less, the transaction is a business loan with a value of $1 million or less, or the transaction is any extension of credit at the lending institution. Federally related transactions. A federally related transaction is any real estate-related financial transaction involving or identified as such by a federal institution's regulatory agency. Because this definition includes all loans made by federally chartered banks and savings and loans, it includes most residential mortgage loans. California law. California's appraiser regulations went into effect November 1, 1992. Enforcement is the responsibility of the Bureau of Real Estate Appraisers, BRE, formerly called the Office of Real Estate Appraisers, which is now part of the Department of Consumer Affairs, and can be found at www.bre.car.gov. As of January 1, 1998, 4 categories of appraiser credentials are issued. All of the following are minimum requirements. Additional requirements that took effect on January 1, 2015, for all new applicants, as well as those wishing to upgrade a license, are also mentioned. A trainee license, requiring 150 classroom hours of instruction, for a prospective appraiser to work under the technical supervision of a licensed appraiser to gain the experience to qualify for a residential license. www.freddieemac.com, www.bre.car.gov, California_principles_10e_book.inp 403 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. 4:04 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. A residential license, requiring 150 classroom hours of instruction and 2,000 hours of acceptable appraisal experience acquired in no fewer than 12 months. For appraisals of non-complex 1 to 4 unit residential property up to a transaction value of $1 million, and non-residential property up to a transaction value of $250,000 as of January 1, 2015, requires 30 semester credit hours of college-level education or an associate's degree or higher in any field. A certified residential license, requiring 200 classroom hours of instruction, an associate's degree or 21 semester credit hours in specified subjects, and a minimum of 2,500 hours of acceptable appraisal experience acquired in no fewer than 30 months, for appraisals of all 1 to 4 unit residential property and non-residential property up to a transaction value of $250,000 as of January 1, 2015. Requires a bachelor's degree or higher in any field. A certified general license, requiring 300 classroom hours of instruction, a bachelor's degree or 30 semester credit hours in specified subjects, and a minimum of 3,000 hours of acceptable appraisal experience acquired in no fewer than 30 months, with at least 1,500 hours of the experience in non-residential properties. For appraisals of all real estate as of January 1, 2015, requires a bachelor's degree or higher in any field. All applicants must complete the 15-hour National Use PAP, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, course as part of the required classroom hours. In addition, every renewal applicant must complete the 7-hour National Use PAP update course every 2 years as part of the continuing education requirements. In addition to successfully completing education requirements, Applicants for licensing must pass the appropriate examination. A license is valid for 4 years, and continuing education requirements must be met to qualify for renewal. Information on appraiser licensing requirements can be obtained from BRED 1916552900 or www.bred.car.gov. The Appraisal Foundation's website, www.appraisalfoundation.org, provides information on the federal requirements. The latest edition of USPAP can be found at www.uspap.org. As of January 1, 2010, California requires registration with BREV. All appraisal management companies, AMC, doing business in the state. AMC requirements are separate from licensing requirements and can be found at www.ed.car.gov/html/amcinfo.html. By using an AMC, a lender can avoid direct hiring of the appraiser who completes an appraisal assignment, helping to ensure the independence required by the Dodd-Frank Act. The largest trade association of appraisal professionals in the United States is the Appraisal Institute. Its website, www.appraisalinstitute.org, has a directory of appraisers and links to an extensive list of real estate-related websites. The site also provides access to the Appraisal Institute's LUM library of publications, which provides search and copying services free of charge to members and for a fee to non-members. www.bred.car.gov, www.appraisalfoundation.org, www.uspap.org, www.ed.car.gov/html/amcinfo.html, www.appraisalinstitute.org. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 404 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 405. What is a real estate appraisal? Most often, a real estate appraisal is the appraiser's opinion of a property's monetary value on the open market as of a specified date. In addition to market value, an appraisal can also be made for a variety of other purposes, such as to find insurance or investment value. An appraisal also can indicate a property's type and condition, its utility for a given purpose, or its highest and best use, a concept that will be discussed in this unit. The term appraisal is used to refer to both the process by which the appraiser arrives at an opinion of value and the written report in which the appraiser explains how the opinion of value was achieved. Any of the property interests discussed in Unit 3, such as a life estate or remainder, can be appraised. Usually, though, the property interest being appraised is a fee simple estate. The appraiser identifies the scope of work required by the appraisal assignment. A compiles a variety of data, including information on the subject property and comparables, and considers market forces and local market conditions to arrive at an opinion of the property's value. The data and factors considered will vary somewhat, depending on the method of appraisal used. The appraiser's final value conclusion will be a dollar value. Most often, the value conclusion is the appraiser's opinion of the property's market value as of the date of the property inspection. An appraisal can provide an opinion of value as of some other date, however, such as the date property was taken in a condemnation proceeding. Market value. The value of an item can be defined as the amount of money or goods or services that will be accepted in exchange for it. This value in exchange is not the only type of value, however. Real estate is described as having a value in use, which refers to its value when used for a particular purpose. This value is subjective because it depends on the needs of a unique user. The value most often sought in a real estate appraisal is market value. Market value is the most probable price a property would bring in an arm's length transaction under normal conditions on the open market. This value is objective, because it is not based on the requirements of a particular owner. In an arm's length transaction, neither buyer nor seller is acting under duress. The real estate has been on the market a reasonable length of time for property of its type. Market value is the appraiser's opinion of what a typical buyer would pay. California_E_principles_10E_book.in 405 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. 406 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. A buyer and seller have full knowledge of the property's assets and defects and no unusual circumstances exist, such as a sale involving related parties, and the price represents the normal consideration for the property sold, unaffected by creative financing or sales concessions. Elements of market value. 4 basic elements, that you can remember by the word dust, must be present before any product has a market value. A market exists only when demand has been created by a product's utility, or usefulness, coupled with its relative scarcity. The product must also have the quality of transferability, that is, there must be no impediment to its sale, such as a lien or other encumbrance. In the case of real estate, a fifth element also is usually necessary. Due to the relative high cost of real estate, and the tax benefits and other advantages of leveraging the purchase with a modest down payment, most purchases are made primarily with borrowed funds, which means that the buyer must be able to secure suitable financing. The market for real estate, then, is determined by the property's possible uses, the availability of similar property and suitable financing, the number of potential purchasers, and the ability of the seller to convey good title to the buyer. Basic value principles. It is the appraiser's task to recognize the factors that influence market value as early and as thoroughly as possible. As you study the basic value principles defined in this section, keep in mind that new concepts are constantly making an appearance. For example, many neighborhoods are now undergoing what is termed gentrification as buyers return to close-in urban and suburban areas, acquiring older buildings and investing money and labor in restoring their purchases. Highest and best use. The highest and best use of real estate is its most profitable, physically possible, and legally permissible use. A highest and best use study can be made of a vacant site or a site to be redeveloped. If a structure exists on the property, the cost of renovating or demolishing that structure is considered. Balance. In general, a balance of varying land uses results in the highest property values overall. For example, housing should benefit from its proximity to places of employment and shopping areas. Supply and demand. The principle of supply and demand reflects the relationship between the number of properties on the market at a given time and their 407 number of potential buyers. All other factors being equal, prices tend to rise if demand is greater than supply. Prices tend to fall if supply exceeds demand. Real estate markets tend to be most stable when there is a moderate oversupply of properties on the market relative to demand. To some extent, this reflects the fact that the marketplace usually includes sellers who can wait out a slow market or take their properties off the market for a time, rather than lower the asking price. Conformity. Buildings exhibit conformity when they are similar in design, construction, and age. Particularly in residential neighborhoods, all property owners usually will benefit when there is consistency in the quality of design and construction, even when architectural styles vary. Progression and regression. The value of a building is enhanced if buildings around it have a higher value, typically because they are better maintained, better quality construction, larger, or a combination of such factors. This is an example of the principle of progression. According to the principle of regression, a building's value declines if the buildings around it have a lower value. For example, no matter how beautiful or extravagant a house is, it will not realize its full market potential if it is in the neighborhood of smaller, lower quality, and thus less valuable, houses. Contribution. A property improvement may or may not increase the property's overall market value, regardless of the cost of the improvement. In an appraisal, a property improvement is valued at only its contribution to the property's market value. The addition of a second bathroom, for instance, probably will contribute more of its cost to the market value of a house than a finished basement. The contribution to value of individual improvements will depend on market demand for those improvements. The National Association of Home Builders, NAB, tracks the market value of common home remodeling projects in various regions of the country. Check www.nab.org for the latest home remodeling cost survey. Competition. Commercial properties are affected by competition, both positively and negatively. As businesses are attracted to a particular area, interest in the area generally increases. At a certain point, however, the market will become saturated and some businesses will suffer. In Silicon Valley, for example, office construction often falls behind market demand. Competition has brought attention to the benefits offered by the area, such as a skilled workforce, and enabled property owners to profit. In a booming market, it may be difficult to remember that there can also be times in which see-throughs, vacant new office buildings, a common change. As residents of California are well aware, real estate lender is subject to a wide range of natural and other influences. Real estate undergoes constant change from a physical, economic. An improvement adds value only if it is what buyers want. www.nab.org California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 407 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. 408 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. A social and apolitical forces. A change may be subtle or catastrophic. Physical changes include the gradual accretion of soil along a riverbank that increases a property's size, as well as the earthquake that renders a structure uninhabitable within seconds. Economic forces include the availability of jobs, transportation, and credit. Social forces include subjective factors that influence our decisions on lifestyle, family planning, education, leisure, and retirement. Zoning, building codes, rent control, and other restrictions on property use are political forces that can be used to encourage, discourage, or even prohibit land development. Life cycle. Both buildings and neighborhoods go through life cycles. As they are developed, they achieve growth, attain a period of equilibrium, or stability, in which little change is evident, then decline as properties deteriorate. By the time the first three stages of the cycle have been completed, the properties involved will show the effects of wear and tear, even when they have been adequately maintained. If otherwise well located, they will attract the investment needed to keep up increased maintenance and undergo a fourth stage, revitalization, before they begin another cycle of gradual deterioration. Anticipation. Real estate is purchased for its expected future benefits. Because real estate values historically have increased, the expectation or anticipation of purchasers usually is that values will continue to rise. Purchases based on that anticipation add to market demand, which helps fulfill the expectation. Real estate values are still affected by property affordability and tend to do best when first-time home buyers are able to enter the market. Substitution. The principle of substitution is that value tends to be decided by the cost of acquiring an equally desirable property. This principle provides the basis of most residential real estate appraisals. The appraiser determines the value of a property that is comparable to the one being appraised and applies that value to the subject property. If there are two comparable properties, the one with the lower price will attract the greatest demand. Exercise 13.1. Which basic value principles does each of the following case examples illustrate? 1. Jeff Powell has finally remodeled his extra bedroom as the den of his dreams. The rosewood wainscoting is set off by hand-painted reproduction antique wallpaper and by light fixtures that Jeff salvaged from the wreck of a yacht. The den was expensive, but Jeff is philosophical, believing that he will always be able to recoup his expenses if he has to sell his house. 2. Biz began her dentistry practice in a small office building in a tiny farm community many miles from the city, surrounded by nothing but flat, California _E_principles _10E book.imp 408 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 409 Unproductive farmland and 3 major freeways. Buys now owns that building, several apartment complexes, a strip shopping center, and a condo on Maui. 3. Papa Joe has owned his corner grocery store for 40 years. He grew up only a few blocks from the store, in a house that is still his home. He remembers the way the neighborhood looked when he was a boy, and there were still many open spaces to explore. When he took over their store, a vacant lot was hard to find. Papa Joe was happy with his booziness, even when his friends began moving to the suburbs and he had fewer customers. The neighborhood became run down and there were quite a few vacant buildings. Lately though, he has noticed quite a few young people moving in and working hard to fix up their houses. New businesses are also opening. Papa Joe has decided to stay and has even put in a takeout deli counter. 4. The Blairs own a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in a well-kept but modest section of town. The Blairs' house is the largest in their neighborhood. They have decided to sell their home and have asked Deborah Dollar, a real estate agent, for her estimate of what sales price they can expect. Deborah knows that a house very similar to the Blairs was sold a few weeks ago, but that house is about a mile away and only a block from an elementary school. Deborah goes over her data on that sale and others in the neighborhood very carefully before she explains to the Blairs why she thinks their house should sell for somewhat less than the one most similar to theirs. The appraisal process. The flowchart in Figure 13.1 shows the steps an appraiser takes in identifying their scope of work required to complete the appraisal assignment, and then gathering, recording, and analyzing the many types of data that contribute to the final opinion of value. The appraiser becomes familiar with the national, regional, city, and neighborhood factors that affect the subject property, the property being appraised. Then, the appraiser's focus shifts to the subject itself. What effect does the location of the property have? Is the subject property located in the direction of growth of the city in which it is located or of a nearby city? Will building restrictions and zoning ordinances impede or aid its value? Is the property's size an optimum one for its highest and best use? Does the topography of their area lend itself to that use? Is the property located on a major thoroughfare that will help or hinder its desirability? These are only some of the appraiser's concerns. California _E_principles _10E book.imp 409 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 42 seconds p.m. 410 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. After a thorough description of the subject property, and in light of all the other information compiled, the appraiser is ready to gather the data needed for the specific appraisal techniques. You can remember them by the 3XA comparison, cost, and capitalization. The sales comparison approach requires descriptions of comparable properties that have sold recently. The cost approach requires building cost data. The income capitalization approach requires income and expense data on the subject, comparable properties, or both. Figure 13.1. The appraisal process. Identify the problem. Determine the scope of work. Analyze data. Form opinion of land value. Form opinion of value by each of the 3 approaches. Reconcile values for final opinion of value. Report final opinion of value. Gather, record, and verify the necessary data. General data: A-cents nation, A-cents region, A-cents city, A-cents neighborhood. Specific data: A-cents subject site, A-cents improvements. Data for each approach: A-cents sales data, A-cents cost data, A-cents income and expense data. Although we have provided only the briefest coverage of the data collection process, we must stress that the appraiser's thorough knowledge of the subject, market, area, and other pertinent facts provides the substance of an accurate appraisal. The most valuable component of an appraisal is the competence and experience of the appraiser. The right data forms the basis of an accurate appraisal. California _E_principles _10E book.imp 410 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 411 All three appraisal methods may not be used in every appraisal. The appraiser uses the most appropriate methods, then determines the value that, in the appraiser's opinion, is the most reliable indicator of value. The final value selection process is called reconciliation and will be discussed later in this unit. Sales comparison approach. The method that usually is the most significant in appraising residential property is the sales comparison approach. The reasoning behind it is easy to understand, and the data required to apply it usually is readily available. The sales comparison approach is also called the market data approach, market comparison approach, or paired sales approach. Following is a summary of this approach. The appraiser finds 3 to 5, or more, recently sold properties that are similar in basic characteristics to the property that is the subject of the appraisal. These comparable properties are referred to as comps. Ideally, the sales should have occurred within the last 6 months, and each comp should offer amenities, special features, such as a swimming pool, similar to those offered by the subject property. The appraiser analyzes each sale and notes significant differences between the comps and the subject property. The appraiser then adjusts the sales price of each comp to more accurately reflect the features of the subject property. The appraiser can also make an adjustment to compensate for a sale that occurred earlier than 6 months before the date of the appraisal. The appraiser's final step is to analyze the resulting figures and choose the one that best represents the value of the subject property. This process can be expressed as a formula: sales price of comparable property A plus minus adjustments equals indicated value of subject property. The appraiser adds to the sales price of the comparable property the value of any feature that is present in the subject property but not in the comp. The appraiser subtracts from the sales price of the comparable property the value of any feature that is present in the comp but not in the subject property. For example, house A is being appraised. House B is comparable to A. House B, which has a 3-car garage, sold for $396,000. House A has only a 2-car garage. The extra garage space is valued by the appraiser at $8,500, based on recent sales. Using the formula for the sales comparison approach, the value of the extra garage space is subtracted from the price of B, as follows: $396,000 A $8,500 equals $387,500. The adjusted price of B is $387,500. This adjusted price will be compared to that of other properties to determine a market value for A. Comparable properties ideally should be located in the same neighborhood as the subject property. They also should be substantially similar to the subject property in style, age, number and type of rooms, size of lot and building, type of construction, and general condition. The financing terms under which the property was sold should be typical of financing in the area, without special consideration for either buyer or seller. The sales should be fairly recent, ideally no more than 6 months before the date of appraisal, or an adjustment will have to be made. Current listings should be examined to reveal any downward trend in seller expectations. This is an especially important consideration at a time of slowing market demand. Any variation in the previously listed specifications would be treated as an adjustment to the sales price of the comp. The one variable that would be difficult, if not impossible, to treat as an adjustment would be a sale that was not an arm's length transaction. Perhaps the seller acted under the duress of an impending foreclosure, divorce action, or immediate job transfer. In such a case, the property probably should be disqualified as a comparable. What if the only recent sales in the neighborhood are foreclosure sales? In that event, property condition will be a critical factor. Foreclosure sales that best reflect the overall characteristics and condition of the subject property may be the most appropriate to use. If the area is a strong rental market, the income approach, discussed later in this unit, may be a good indicator of property value. Real estate agents who perform market analyses for prospective clients and customers have ready sources of sales information in their own files. They also can obtain sales information from multiple listing services and can exchange data on transactions that have closed with other agents. Once a transaction has been recorded in the county clerk's office, the county assessor also is a source of sales information. Exercise 13.2 takes you through a very simplified version of an appraisal of a single-family residence using the sales comparison approach. Read all of the information given, then supply the necessary calculations in the chart. When you have finished, decide which of the indicated values appears to come closest to the market value of the subject property. Isolate the high and low figures and find the value that most closely represents the entire range of values. Exercise 13.2 You are to provide an opinion of the current market value of House X. House X is a one-story, single-family residence with wood siding. It has a living room, a formal dining room, a kitchen, a family room with a fireplace, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and an attached 2-car garage. Appliances are in good condition, and the seller will pay for a home warranty to cover repairs to major mechanical systems for 1 year. A forced sale usually places the seller at a disadvantage, and the transaction will not be a good comparable. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 412 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 413 House X is in a neighborhood of similar homes, all landscaped and well maintained, and presents an attractive street-side appearance. House X has an in-ground swimming pool with well-established landscaping. House A also has a swimming pool and is comparable to X but has an extra half bath off the family room. House B has a swimming pool and is comparable to X but has no fireplace. House C is comparable to X, but has no swimming pool. House A sold for $551,000, B sold for $538,000. and C sold for $499,000. In this price range, an extra half bath is valued at $8,000, a fireplace is valued at $6,200, and an in-ground swimming pool with mature landscaping is a desirable amenity valued at $25,000. Complete the following chart using the figures above. Comparables: ABC, sales price adjustment variables, extra half bath, no fireplace, no swimming pool, total adjustments, adjusted value, comparative market analysis. Many real estate agents who are not appraisers will supply the information necessary for a comparative market analysis, CMA, also sometimes called a competitive market analysis or a broker's price opinion, BPO. The agent's purpose is to assist the seller or buyer in determining the property's fair market value. ICMA ordinarily is more limited in scope than an appraisal and does not include an opinion of value by the agent. The most frequently used source of data for a CMA is the bank of properties handled through the agent's multiple listing service. Sales, asking prices, and length of time on the market will be examined for the following 3 categories of property in a defined area: a property that was sold recently, a property that is for sale now, a property that was previously listed for sale, but the listing has expired or the property was withdrawn from the market. The sales and or asking prices, when examined together, indicate to the seller a range of values that includes the listing or asking price as well as the sales price of. Properties that failed to sell may reveal more than properties that sold. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 413 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. 414 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. The subject property. Such data also indicate the number of days the property may be expected to be on the market before it sells. For the buyer, the market analysis suggests a price range from which to select an offer to purchase and the maximum price that should be paid. Cost approach. In the cost approach for establishing value, the appraiser determines what it would cost to duplicate the subject property, 1. The appraiser begins with the present cost of improvements on the subject property. 2. The appraiser then subtracts the amount by which those improvements have depreciated. 3. Finally, the appraiser adds in the value of the land to arrive at an indicated value. The formula for the cost approach is as follows. Reproduction or replacement cost of improvements, say accrued depreciation plus site value. Reproduction cost is the cost of a new building of exactly the same design and materials as the subject property. Replacement cost is the cost of a new building using modern methods, design, and materials and having the same use as their subject property but without the identical specifications. The replacement cost of a building is appropriate when the structure's design or construction is not economically feasible to reproduce today. Certain design features could be impossible to duplicate at any price, because skilled craftspeople may not be available to produce special building features, such as ornate cornices, moldings, or ceilings. The closest modern substitutes are evaluated instead. Site value is determined by the sales comparison approach or other appropriate method. The records of the county tax assessor show a land to improvements ratio that can be useful in evaluating comparable properties to derive land value. A loan. Many lenders making government-backed loans do not accept other valuation sources for their appraisals. The cost approach has the drawback of relying on construction cost estimates that differ greatly from region to region. Even within a state, builders' costs vary, and often depend on the number of units under construction. Construction techniques also affect cost. For example, prefabricated roof trusses lower on-site labor costs. National and regional cost manuals help the appraiser keep cost estimates up to date. Such manuals are revised frequently, and the better ones have online services that update price changes weekly or even daily. Finally, the cost approach assumes that the buildings already on the site represents its highest and best use. As mentioned earlier in this unit, the value in use of a property is its value to its present owner and, thus, is a subjective value. Market. Local labor costs are probably the biggest construction cost variable. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 414 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 415 Value, on the other hand, should be an objective determination. A property with no utility to anyone but its present owner will not be evaluated fairly by the cost approach. In the same way, a property that is not put to its highest and best use is not an appropriate subject for the cost approach. Local preferences also must be considered. For example, an ornate but little used movie theater may have great sentimental value but probably would be better appraised for the redevelopment value of its site rather than as a structure maintaining its present use. If it is declared a historical landmark, however, and redevelopment is prohibited, its present use may be the only available option. The cost approach method is ideal for special purpose properties or those that have no comparables in the area or which produce no income. Examples are museums, schools, and churches. Finding reproduction or replacement cost. The appraiser can use any one or more of the following four methods to find the reproduction or replacement cost of property improvements: A square foot method, A unit in place method, A quantity survey method, A index method. Square foot method. Using the square foot method, the appraiser multiplies the current cost per square foot of a comparable building by the number of square feet in the subject building. This is the method most frequently used by appraisers. A similar approach is the cubic foot method, most commonly used for non-residential properties such as warehouses. Cost data services, such as those found at www.smins.com and www.marshallswift.com, can be used to find their cost per square or cubic foot of a property with the same specifications as the subject building. Unit in place method. The unit in place method makes use of the construction cost per unit of measure of each of the component parts of the subject property, such as walls, plumbing units, heating units, and so on. Each unit cost includes material, labor, overhead, and builder's profit. The cost per unit is multiplied by the number of units of each component part, and the individual unit costs are then totaled. Most measurements will be in square feet, although mechanical and plumbing systems will be estimated as complete units. Quantity survey method. The quantity survey method requires a thorough itemization of all construction costs, both direct, materials and labor, and indirect, permits, taxes, profits, insurance, and other overhead. Every material, labor, and indirect cost is estimated separately, and the individual costs are totaled there. www.smeans.com, www.marshallswift.com. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 415 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. 416 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. Quantity survey method can be used only by someone familiar with all facets of building construction. It is very accurate but time-consuming. Index method. In the index method, the appraiser multiplies the original cost of the subject property by a factor that represents the percentage increase, or decrease, of construction costs generally from the time of construction to the present time. Cost reporting or indexing services, such as those mentioned previously, provide information on cost changes over time as well as from area to area. If the original cost of the subject structure is known, the index method is the simplest way to estimate present cost. It is a very imprecise method, however, and for that reason it should be used only as a check on the value arrived at by one of the other methods. Depreciation. Depreciation is a loss in value from any cause. Note that depreciation for appraisal purposes is not the depreciation that Uncle Sam allows investors to deduct from income in computing taxes. Depreciation for tax purposes is meant to encourage investment, and it may have absolutely no relation to the loss in value to a structure brought about by physical deterioration and other causes. The appraiser's job is to estimate the actual loss in value from depreciation and reduce the replacement cost of the subject property accordingly. There are three main types of depreciation. Some forms of depreciation are considered curable because they can be remedied by a repair or an addition to their property at relatively low cost. In other words, the property's value after the repair or improvement is increased by an amount greater than or at least equal to the cost of the work. Other forms of depreciation are considered incurable because there is no easy or economical way to remedy them. Many buildings damaged by earthquakes or mudslides could be repaired but at too great an expense to make the repairs feasible as a practical matter. The three forms of depreciation are as follows: A. Physical deterioration. A. Functional obsolescence. A. External obsolescence. Physical deterioration. Physical deterioration includes damage or destruction to a building as well as the more subtle effects of ordinary wear and tear. Examples of physical deterioration include windows destroyed by vandals, roof damage caused by a violent storm, and wood siding that has cracked and separated over time. Functional obsolescence. Functional obsolescence occurs when a building's design, layout, or utility is no longer desirable. Functional obsolescence 417 reflects the changing requirements of the marketplace and may be observed in both houses and commercial structures. The suburban house with only one bathroom and the gas station forced out of business because the owner cannot afford to upgrade the underground holding tanks, as required by law, are both examples of functional obsolescence. The selling price of the house will suffer. The gas station will remain vacant until another use for the property is found or it is sold for the value of its site, which will take into account the cost of removing the underground tanks and performing the necessary environmental remediation. External obsolescence. External obsolescence, also called environmental obsolescence or economic obsolescence, is the loss in a property's value due to outside causes. Changes in nearby land use through development, rezoning, or transfer of ownership may bring about a loss in value. Ironically, rezoning may increase the value of the rezoned property while decreasing the value of adjacent property. Property on a residential street rezoned to allow commercial uses most likely will increase in value. Adjacent property, which must remain residential, may decline in value due to greater noise and traffic. Economic factors tend to have a ripple effect and eventually affect property values. For example, If a major employer moves to a distant location, there may be more homes on the market as transferred employees move to the new location, which will lower prices. As the population decreases and unemployment rises, both the housing market and businesses dependent on consumer spending will suffer. External obsolescence generally is incurable, because by definition it is caused by outside forces. Computing depreciation. The two most widely used direct methods of computing depreciation are the A straight-line method and A observed condition method. Straight-line method. The straight-line method of computing depreciation is the easiest to understand and the least complicated to use. Every building has an economic life, which is the period of years in which it may be used for its originally intended purpose. If the value of the building is divided by the number of years of its estimated economic, useful, life, the resulting figure is the amount by which the building can be expected to depreciate every year. If property is well maintained, however, its rate of depreciation may be slowed. In that case, its effective age will be less than its age in actual calendar years. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 417 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. 418 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. For example, a storage warehouse is constructed at a cost of $425,000 and has an estimated economic life of 50 years. After 30 years of good maintenance, the building has an effective age of only 20 years. By how much will their building have depreciated? $425,000. 50 years equals $8,500. Depreciation each year $8,500. A tilde. 20 equals $170,000 total depreciation or 100%. 50 years equals 2% depreciation per year. 20 years A tilde minus 2% equals 40% depreciation. $425,000 A tilde minus 40% equals $170,000 total depreciation. The straight line method is one that the Internal Revenue Service uses. The number of years prescribed by the IRS is not necessarily the number of years the appraiser will use. However, observed condition method. The observed condition method of computing depreciation is also called the breakdown method. It requires the appraiser to estimate the loss in value caused by every individual item of depreciation, whether curable or incurable. The appraiser determines the effect on value of each item in every category of depreciation: physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and external obsolescence. The appraiser then deducts the loss in value in each category from their reproduction cost of the subject building. Computing depreciation in a very old building by the breakdown method might be an overwhelming task, and another approach would be advisable. For example, the reproduction cost of a building is $670,000. Its depreciation is estimated as follows: physical deterioration curable $84,000, incurable $67,000, functional obsolescence curable $43,000, incurable 0, external obsolescence curable 0, incurable 0, total $194,000. California_E_principles_10E_book.inp 418 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 419 Depreciated building cost is reproduction cost less depreciation. $670,000 A $194,000 equals $476,000. Land value would be added to the depreciated building cost to find total property value. Remember that a cost estimate of value usually determines the upper limit of a property's value. A buyer ordinarily does not want to pay more for an existing building than it would cost to build a new one. Exercise 13.3. Find the current market value of House X using the square foot method of estimating value by the cost approach. House X has a living area of 25 feet by 60 feet. with an attached garage of 25 feet by 25 feet. Current cost per square foot of a residence with the specifications of X is $125 per square foot of living area and $75 per square foot of garage space. House X had an original useful life of 40 years and is now 4 years old. A few lots are still available in House X's subdivision. A lot comparable to the one on which X is built is valued at $56,000. Living area equals _square feet at _ per square foot equals _ garage area equals _ square feet at _ per square foot equals _ total reproduction cost equals _ total reproduction cost years of useful life equals $_ yearly depreciation A tilde years equals $_ total depreciation reproduction cost A total depreciation plus land value equals _ the estimate of value of House X by the cost approach is _ income capitalization approach. In estimating value by the income capitalization approach, the appraiser first determines the property's potential gross income. Potential gross income is a property's maximum income from all sources. An office or apartment building might produce income from vending machines or a laundry room in addition to rental income. A single-family residence probably would have only a base monthly rent. The appraiser estimates what is called the property's market rent or economic rent. Market rent is an estimate of the property's rent potential or what it could rent for if available for rental. On today's market, the rent received by the current property owner is called the property's contract rent or scheduled rent. Contract rent may be higher or lower than market rent. The going rate for a property is its market rent. California _E_ principles _10E_ book.inp 419 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. 420 California Real Estate Principles 10th edition. The appraiser next makes an allowance for vacancy and collection losses. Not every unit in the building will be continuously occupied, and sometimes a tenant is delinquent in rent payments. The appraiser estimates and then subtracts these anticipated losses from gross income to derive effective gross income. Yearly operating expenses are then subtracted from effective gross income to arrive at net operating income. By applying a capitalization rate to net operating income, the appraiser arrives at an estimate of market value. The capitalization (cap) rate is the property owner's annual expected rate of return. The capitalization rate can be expressed as the relationship between their net operating income the property produces and its market value, as in the following equation. Net operating income value equals capitalization rate. We can also derive two corollaries from that equation. Capitalization rate A tilde value equals net operating income. Net operating income capitalization rate equals value. The capitalization rate can be developed by analyzing net income and sales prices of comparable properties. For example, building Y produces a yearly net operating income of $32,000. What is the market value of Y? Building D has a net operating income of $35,000 per year, and it sold 2 months ago for $389,000. Building E has a net operating income of $31,000 per year, and it sold last week for $345,000. Building D and D are otherwise comparable to Y. They are in the same area and are also 6-unit apartment buildings of the same age and general physical condition as Y. Using the equation for the capitalization rate, $35,000 $389,000 equals 9%. $31,000 $345,000 equals 9%. The capitalization rates for building D and E support the assigning of a capitalization rate of 9% to Y. Using the equation for value, $32,000.09 equals $355,555.56. The indicated market value of Y, rounded to the nearest $100, is $355,600. The better the investment, the more stable its projected income stream, the lower the cap rate that the investor will demand. Conversely, an investor will expect a higher rate of return on a riskier investment. California_E_Principles_10E_book.inp 420 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 421 Note: financing costs have not been included in this discussion of net operating income. Financing costs will vary, depending on the individual property buyer's financial position and negotiating power with a lender. Thus, interest and principal payments are considered costs associated with a particular buyer rather than with operating expenses of the property. In short, how a property is financed does not affect its value. All property is treated as if it is held free and clear. Gross income multipliers. Many properties, including single-family residences, are not purchased primarily for their income-producing potential. For those properties, a simpler method of determining value based on income may be used. Begin by dividing the sales price of a rented, comparable property by the gross income the property produces to arrive at a factor called the gross income multiplier, GIM. Sales price gross income equals GIM. An annual GIM is more likely to be used for industrial or commercial property. A monthly GIM generally is used for residential property. Because its income is generally limited to rent, the multiplier for a single-family residence is usually termed a gross rent multiplier, GRM. For example, a commercial building with an annual gross income of $48,000 sold 2 months ago for $535,000. What is that building's gross income multiplier? Using the equation, $535,000 $48,000 equals 11.1. The building's gross income multiplier is 11.1. Rounding to the nearest tenth. The appraiser compares the GIM of at least 4 comparable properties to determine the multiplier most applicable to the subject property. The GIM selected for the subject property then is multiplied by the actual or projected rental of the subject to find its market value. Gross income A tilde, GIM equals market value. For example, building Y has an annual gross income of $63,000. What is its market value? Using the gross income multiplier method of 4 comparable properties, one has a GIM of 10.0, one has a GIM of 8.5, and the other 2 each have a GIM of 9.5. Discounting the high and low figures, we arrive at a gross income multiplier for the subject property of 9.5. $63,000 A tilde. 9.5 equals $598,500. Building Y has a market value of $598,500. The gross income multiplier method is not accurate enough to serve as the sole means of determining market value. It fails to take into account the many variables that contribute to gross income. It also fails to consider the many property expenses that can reduce effective net income. Because it is relatively easy to use, however, it may be a useful check of the value reached by another appraisal method. Exercise 13.4 You are appraising a single-family residence that may be purchased as a rental property. Complete the following chart to determine the property's gross income multiplier, then estimate its market value. Sale number. Market value. Monthly gross income multiplier 1 $585,000 $2,845 $205.6 $582,000 $2,810 $207.13 $575,000 $2,775 $207.24 $565,000 $2,775 $203.65 $568,000 $2,600 $218.5 Subject $2,800 Reconciliation and the appraisal report. The appraiser begins the final step in the appraisal process with as many as 3 different values for the subject property, one for each of the approaches used: a sales comparison, cost, or income capitalization. To determine the most appropriate estimate of value for the subject property, the appraiser reconsiders each of the values in light of A, the type of property being appraised, and the purpose of the appraisal, and any other factors that may be unique to the appraisal. The process of weighing the differing values by their relevance to the appraisal problem is called reconciliation, or correlation. The goal of the analysis is to select the value that is most likely to be an accurate reflection of market value. The appraiser's final opinion of value can then be presented and explained in the report to the client. To comply with the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, USPAP, the appraiser must identify an appraisal report as a self-contained report, a summary report, or a restricted use report. California_E_principles_10E_book.INP 422 the 23rd of May 2017 2:31 and 45 seconds p.m. Unit 13 Real Estate Appraising 423 Self-contained report. The self-contained report, also called a narrative report, is the most comprehensive report the appraiser can make. It includes a complete statement of the appraiser's credentials. It provides a thorough description of the property being appraised, the purpose of the appraisal, and a summary of the background data supporting each opinion of value. It will include a full description of all data considered and all techniques used in the appraisal process. The self-contained report provides an overview of the subject property's region, city, and neighborhood. It may total 30 pages or more, even for a single-family residence. It is used most often in a legal proceeding, such as the probate of an estate, a divorce settlement, litigation, or a condemnation action where extensive detail is necessary. Summary form report. A summary report will provide the most important details of the appraiser's analysis, including a brief version of pertinent data and a shortened discussion of their appraisal techniques used. A summary report is commonly used by government agencies and the lenders with which they do business, typically by means of a standardized form. The type of property and the purpose of the appraisal dictate the exact form used. The first 3 pages of the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, URA, Form 1004, used by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and many other agencies, appears in Figure 13.2. The last 3 pages of the form include definitions of terms and the appraiser's certification. A copy of the complete form is available at www.fnme.com. Restricted Use Report. A restricted use report will be limited in either the method of valuation used or the property interests valued. The limitation must be stated in the appraisal and the client must be the only intended user. www.fnme.com. 424. Figure 13.2, Uniform Residential Appraisal Report.
Perfect.